everybody. Welcome back to another episode of FFB from the 50. I'm here with Patrick and Joe, and we're going to start a new series for 2025. It's called Fly on the Wall Fireside Chat, where we're going to be talking to each other just in a conversational fashion. We've invited you to come along and be the fly on the wall, but don't forget you can be a part of the conversation. Go down to the comment section below, and we will do our best to respond to the people that are out there commenting. All right, so here's another bench question. What I'm going to do is I'm going to throw it to you two. But then don't forget, you are the fourth person in this conversation, so make sure you go down to the comment section and let us know what you think too. Is there a specific ratio of positions when you are drafting your team that you're looking for your bench? In other words, at any point do you say, I'm getting too running back heavy, I need more wide receivers, or I have to have that second quarterback because I don't want to trust that there's going to be another one during my bye week? Let's say your quarterback's got bye week 10. Well, by week 10, you may have 4 quarterbacks on IR. Do you have to have a backup tight end? Oh, I got 6 extra wide receivers and only 2 running backs. Is there a ratio that you look for? Because then after this, I got another question for you both too. So, Joe, I'm going to throw it to you. Do you care about the ratio? Do you care about having your bench balanced by position, or do you just want the best player out there?
Well, in our dynasty, we don't have a limit.
Correct.
We don't have a limit, so I look for what their potential is, because we can hold on to them. I look for what they can do this year, and then the next part is what their upside potential is. That's how I do it. When it comes to leagues where there's a maximum, I try to go after running backs for the bench. And I try to maximize that when it comes to the leagues with the limits. Although every year I find myself going after value and end up with the maximum of receivers, unfortunately, because
never fails.
I'm not the only one who thinks like that, and everybody else wants to maximize their running backs because clearly they get hurt and they bring the most value. So I end up with the maximum amount of receivers with like 1 running back in depth.
Yeah,
that's what
I think a lot of us end up in that place, and I find myself every year looking at my roster, and I've got like 5 wide receivers and 3 backs, and I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Every year, because
where you're going after value.
The value is always going to be there with wide receivers, just because it's so much deeper. You can get value with 40 wide receivers. You're just not going to find that with running back. But the problem is running backs are much more volatile, and they get hurt all the dang time.
Yeah.
And you really have to force yourself to get out of your comfort zone, out of the value comfort zone, and to force yourself to assess potential running back value. Because if you build a roster with 6 receivers and 3 running backs, by the time you get to week 12, you're going to be hurting.
Yeah, yeah.
For sure. Okay, so next question for you. Do you look at bye weeks? And I'm asking this question again. Go down in the comment section and let me know what you guys think. When I'm drafting a team, I got to be honest, I don't care about the bye week. And I guess my thought is if I end up with 4 or 5 of my starters that all have the same bye week, so be it. I'll be strong the rest of the season. I'll be weak one week while everybody else is worried about that other nonsense. I don't worry about it. So for me, when I draft, I don't even look at bye week. And if it's one of those situations, because this has happened to me one time, where I had to leave a guy on bye in my starting roster, and I'm obsessed with fantasy football. In case you haven't all noticed, I don't ever do that, right? But that's because there was nobody I was willing to drop, and I had all my guys stacked up, and I lost that 1 week, but it was last year in the New Rents Little League. You guys let me walk out with that roster, and I ended up getting like 5 or 6 high scores. And I didn't even care about. I just these guys are too good. I'm not going to pass them up because he happens to share. Because I have 3 running backs that have the same bye week. Yeah. There were 3 damn good running backs.
Yeah, I've actually developed this same. I started doing that probably 2 or 3 years ago, where if I have to choose between 2 players that I have similar grades on both, I'll actually shade within reason. I try to pack as many bye weeks into the same week as I can. I would much rather sacrifice a singular week where I have a 20% win percentage chance instead of a 45 to 55, 60% chance to win. I would so much rather sacrifice that win potential in 1 week than lose 5% in, 8 or 10 weeks. And so I've moved in that direction myself.
And I know it makes players mad, like, oh, you didn't set your roster. I did. There's nobody on my bench that I'm willing to let go to cover that spot, and I would rather go 13-1 than worry about going 8-6 because I've spread out my bye weeks and I'm weak all the time. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, the only time I've ever come across, I mean, it's been ugly sometimes, but the only time I've ever not picked somebody based on that is, with 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because it's the whole purpose of the backup quarterback.
Probably tight ends, too. I mean,
tight ends, but I don't really ever find myself getting a second tight end.
Yeah.
I personally don't.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, I'm talking about in the draft. I'll pick one up, but then I don't. But I usually don't draft 2 tight ends personally.
Yeah, I find the only time that comes into consideration is if you have particularly an early bye week if you've got a 2 tight end situation on your roster, and I don't always build my roster with 2 tight ends. It kind of depends on my team. But if I'm in a situation where I need a second tight end because I've got a week 4 or 5 bye week or something along those lines, you obviously don't want to stack bye weeks there. So you want to offset those. And then often what I'll find myself doing is after that bye week, I'll just drop that second tight end altogether, and then
I have a hard enough time ever finding 1 tight end, let alone 2.
And that's the other part of this is
like one that's productive.
Oftentimes it'll end up being a situation where you're drafting a tight end that's not in that tier 1, but you end up in that second tier where you're drafting, tight ends like 4 through 10, and you're stacking 2 tight ends like boom boom right after the other. And oftentimes you end up in a place where it's like, I think this guy's got value, but I don't know, because that's you're in that tight end dead range where you don't really you're speculating on potential value and usage and role, and in those particular situations we're all guessing as it is anyway. And so maybe if you've got an elite tier tight end 1, you're not even really paying attention. But,
you're talking about. We were talking about handcuffing tight ends. Notorious for handcuffing tight ends, because I picked Mark Andrews.
Oh yeah.
Got to get likely.
Yeah. You
got to get Andrews. You got to get likely. Now I don't know if anybody's going to be doing that this year.
I was going to say in the past,
but it's like we didn't talk about the tight end part of the handcuffing.
Yeah.
That's a big. Have you noticed that? Have you guys said that? I tend to do that all the time with my tight ends.
I don't think there are that many situations.
But I pick it up via free. Well, but I've gotten caught with Andrews.
Well, yeah.
That's why it hurts. It hurts.
Baltimore is one of those rare situations where there is a tight end handcuff. But I mean, if you look at most situations in the league, I don't like. Maybe like Buffalo with Dawson Knox there for a while. But
is it going to be with the Bears this year?
I mean,
they got Kmet and Loveland.
What's going to happen?
Are they going to run 12 personnel the whole time?
I'm not touching either one of those tight ends. In relative to ADP.
Well,
because
isn't that the question?
Are they both rated to go high? Or
No.
are they both?
No.
This has Kmet. This has Kmet at 326.
Mm-hmm. Well,
that's not even getting drafted.
But Patrick, I think we need to delve in on your point there, because if the situation dictates that there's a potential handcuff or whatever, then do either guy have enough value to begin with? If both guys are going to see, we're not talking Gronk and Hernandez. We're not talking about Gronk and the murderer. We're talking about, but those guys both had. When was the last time we saw one team produce 2 fantasy relevant tight ends at the same time?
New England.
New England.
That's what I'm saying with Gronk and the murderer. I mean.
Actually, I don't even really remember how good Hernandez statistically did that year.
He was decent.
He was incredibly functional He was incredibly functional as a real football. Mm-hmm. I mean, they put him at running back. They put him at
he wasn't even really a tight end. He was more of an H-back than anything.
I don't know. But statistically, was he super relevant?
I think he still produced a top 10 finish. But how hard is that to do when that position's so thin to begin with? Like, if you're breathing, you have a shot at becoming a top 10 tight end, right? Hernandez is no longer breathing, so that was terrible. That was low.
That was low.
That might be a new low for this channel. So,
well, I don't take any part in that. That's all you.
But you look back at the Brent Selleck and Zach Ertz days with Philly. Could have made maybe an argument, but my argument would be that those guys weren't each other's handcuff. They actually just handcuffed each other.
Yeah.
It's not a situation where you've got two good tight ends. You've got a problem where one is poaching from the other.
Mm-hmm.
And in real life football, that's great, but this isn't real life football.
Yeah.
This is fantasy. We care about stats.
And the reality is most of the teams are moving to 3 wide receiver, 1 running back sets, and so you're often in a 1 tight end situation. So it's like there's never going to be enough standalone value in that second tight end ever justifying them as anything more than an Isaiah Likely style of handcuff.
It really is. I'm looking over these. That really was a very unique
It
situation.
it truly is. I mean, I don't think you can honestly draft a second tight end on any roster outside of Likely, off the top of my head.
Possibly the Bears situation. Possibly. Maybe not draft.
You can literally
but-
get him in the last round, or just pick him up off the waiver wire.
Yeah.
It's just like Loveland might even be hurt. Like, is he even healthy right now?
No, right now he's probably going to start the season
On PUP, probably.
on PUP. But let's back up though, because I can think of a team right now. Let's take a look real quick, and you can argue the nuts and bolts behind this. But let's look at the Saints. Juwan Johnson every year was like he's going to do it, but don't forget they got Taysom Hill who has dual designation. That's a possibility.
Yeah. Well, I
don't know that you're drafting those guys.
Foster Moreau's like your second tight end functionally, and again he's going to eat into that as well. What are you going to draft a guy? And he's going to get 3 points week to week. I mean, me personally, I don't see any value in tight end handcuffing other than Likely.
He's really the only one, and
that's what I dealt with.
I would much rather be in a situation where I'm drafting somebody like Ingram, somebody like Henry, somebody in that lower tier. I shouldn't say lower tier, that mid tight end range, and then using a later pick to grab Likely to get access to that upside potential. Because if Andrews were to go down, Likely could easily be a top 5 week to week streamer.
And I guess when I'm talking about handcuffing when it comes to the tight end situation, it is a roster spot versus maybe a draft pick.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I found
That's
myself
more than anything.
handcuffing roster spots.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, I mean, that's
and I'm with you because, there's really... Guys, I got to be honest with you. I don't think there's going to be a single team that I draft this year out of the 18 to 20 leagues that I'm going to do that I'm going to carry 2 tight ends coming out of the draft on my bench. I just don't think it's going to happen. And if I'm being 100% honest, because I'm not in any super flex leagues, probably won't be any leagues that I come out with 2 quarterbacks either. Now, I could see if you're in a 12, 14, 16 person league, grabbing a backup quarterback. But in the leagues I play in, 10 person, not necessary. So I guess that's my next question for you. How does roster size, or I'm sorry, not roster size, the league size, how does that change things? Because I do find myself still not drafting a backup tight end on my bench, but if I'm in a 12 or 14 person league, I do typically find myself leaning more towards running backs, and I do typically grab a second quarterback.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of 12 and 14 team leagues, so my opinion here is of less value. So I will leave that to you guys.
Well, I'm in a 12-person league, and I tell you what, the difference between that 12 and 10 is drastic.
Yeah.
It is drastic. When it comes to starters, all of a sudden you have guys starting that are backup guy. You're like, well, I hope he gets some.
They'd be on the waiver wire.
I hope he gets a few catches.
I hope he gets a look.
They'd be on the waiver wire in a 10-team league.
Yeah, it is drastically. I couldn't imagine a 14 team.
Well,
with
so I'm in an 18-team league that has 18 rounds.
Wow.
So on that one, I typically walk out with 4 tight ends. Because even a guy, and just let's look down this list, even a guy like, I'll say Kyle Pitts, but that's a bad example because he's been drafted early, but even a guy like Cade Otton or Pat Freiermuth, a tight end 1 on some of these teams will outproduce the running backs 4s and 5s and the wide receivers 5s and 6s that are available at that point.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
This is all relative. I guess that's what we're trying to say. It's all relative to the size of the league that you're in too. So keep that in mind.
Well, not only that, but also the scoring model. Because scoring models change things dramatically. I remember when we moved our dynasty from passing touchdowns being a 4-point proposition to a 6-point proposition, it took me almost 2 years to adjust the way that I rank quarterbacks to adjust for that. For just that 2-point adjustment.
It's huge.
It is. And it's scoring is PPR, half PPR, scoring is a very underrepresented issue that people don't pay enough issue outside of the half PPR discussion.
Well, what do you think about the new push for the 2.5 points PPR for tight ends?
That's a thing?
That's a thing now.
2.5 points for...
So all receptions are either half point or a full point for running backs and wide receivers, but tight ends get 2.5 points to try to level the playing field.
Well, that would be that's a big deal because there's some guys that get a lot of catches. The number one guy, Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram had over 100 catches. Was that this year or the year?
You could get some really odd scoring situations with that.
Yeah.
What is Brock Bowers worth in a situation like that? Is he the number one pick?
He's got to be up there, and then you look at a guy like Trey McBride who doesn't catch touchdowns, but also gets 120, 130 targets.
Yeah.
Like I don't care if you score touchdowns. If you're getting 2.5 points a catch, are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like Bowers. What my guess is, and that's just for tight ends.
That's just for tight ends.
Yeah, Bowers would be the number one pick.
Is this being pushed pretty heavily?
It's not being pushed heavily, but it is becoming more prevalent. It started a couple years ago and it has picked up some steam. Me personally, not a huge fan of it.
I think it's a little too niche for me.
I think we're trying to get a little too cute and clever with some of these things.
But just let it happen. Like, just let it...
Yeah, it either happens or it doesn't. We all go in with the same information. We all have the same opportunity to make the same picks. We don't need to be that cute and clever. But make sure you go out to the videos that we cut last year because we did a whole series on why you... In playing, we call it the Fantasy Football Basics, but one of the videos was on your fantasy football settings, your scoring settings specifically, and why that was so important. So go back to... That's an older video, but go back and find it because we talk about that because you nailed it on the head, Patrick. Know your settings. That can dictate how you build your bench as well. So, What else you guys got? What am I missing?